Welcome to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. Here's your host, Steve Teixeira.
Thanks, Andy. Welcome to another 17 Strong podcast. I'm your host, Steve Teixeira, with my beautiful wife, Holly.
Hi, how are you?
We're ready to do this again.
We are. We're getting pros at this.
Who do we have with us today?
We have an amazing Victory Trip recipient. They're all amazing, like we talked about before. They are amazing, but this one's super special. And her name is Drea Sauceda, right? But we call her Drea.
I go by Drea. Yeah.
Drea, that's what we call her. So thank you. Welcome to be here. Yeah.
Welcome.
Guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So first things first, tell me about yourself. Tell me about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name's Drea, and I am 40 years old, born and raised on the Central Coast. I'm a teacher, so I'm preschool, TK, love my job so much. I'm a mom. I have a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm married to my husband for almost 20 years this year.
Woo!
Yeah, we got married really young. So
Exciting.
pretty much that's my life, my girls, my husband, and my work, my
That's
kids.
awesome. That's
And,
great.
Yeah, that's me.
It's a great life. I
It's
love
great.
that.
It's
I love
wonderful.
that. Yeah. And you live in Santa Maria.
I do, yeah.
That's awesome. That's where Steve is born, raised, and 5 generations from.
wow.
5 generations, yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool thing too. But anyway, tell us about how you got diagnosed with cancer and how you found it and what age you were diagnosed at.
Okay.
All that good stuff.
So it was when I was 38, I was taking a shower and I felt a lump in my breast just randomly. And I knew it was something different, something I hadn't felt before. And my mom kind of raised me like, be on your doctor appointments, get your things checked out. And I had just had my women's exam like a few months prior. She did a breast exam, but obviously didn't feel it. And so by the grace of God, I felt it. So I called them and they came or I went in and got seen like a few weeks after. And initially, they weren't even concerned. They were like, well, you're young, you're 38. You know, lumps, sometimes that happens. You don't really have any other symptoms, but, you know, we'll do a mammogram and an ultrasound just to make sure. And so I hadn't had any of that yet. They usually start that about 40. So I was like, okay. So a few weeks later, I went in, they got me in. And it was at that appointment that I definitely knew something was wrong. They were a little more serious. As I was getting my ultrasound, they were like, you ever had a biopsy? And I'm like, no. And I don't know anything. I'm just sitting there like, okay, you know, I don't know what to expect. I don't know the protocol. I've never done this before. And then they're like, you know what? We want to scan again. So they had me go back and get another mammogram. And then they sat me down. And then they were like, I could tell they were like shuffling. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm just like, like, okay, just go sit down for a minute and we'll call the doctor. And I'm like, okay. And as I'm sitting there, I had this, oh my gosh, I heard the voice of the Lord. And he was like, pray for no other concerns. And I was like, okay. So
what does that mean, right? You're like, what is going on?
So I just started praying and I was like, Lord, I pray for no other concerns. I pray that everything's okay. I pray for no other concerns. And a few minutes later, she calls me in. She says, okay, well, the doctor's ready for you. So I go in and she's like, okay, well, you know, obviously we do see something. We want to get a biopsy as soon as possible. And I'm like, so to make sure you think it's cancer? Like, I don't know anything. I don't know what a biopsy is. And like, she's like, yes. She's like, at this point, we don't see any other concerns. And I was like, okay,
oh, wow. That was quick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was good to hear. She's like, but we'll do an MRI as well and make sure. And I'm like, okay.
And you don't know this doctor. She just
I
literally
don't know
is a
her.
stranger.
We're like in an exam room. Like, we're not even in like an office. And so they're like, okay, go to the front, make an appointment to get a biopsy done. And I'm like, okay. So I walk to the front and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, is this happening? And then the nurse comes out and she's like, she needs to get on the books as soon as possible. We need to see her ASAP. And I'm like, again, they didn't say like we think, or like it was just very vague. Like, we need to just do a biopsy. And so
and
a
you
week
can tell
later,
the concern.
I can tell that they're concerned. So I'm like, is this normal? Is this how all like possible, you know, cancer diagnoses happen with breast cancer? Like, I don't know. So a week goes by and they get me in pretty quickly. And I get my biopsy, and then I just wait. And the next day is when I got the call in my preschool at my classroom. Got the phone call. They said, you know, I'm so sorry. The gynecologist called me and said, we did the biopsy. It came back. It's unfortunately cancer. You'll be put through to your doctor that will help you, you know, through this, your surgeon. And I'm like, okay, bye. Good to know. And I'm so in shock that the first thing I do is I'm just like, it's cancer. I'll talk to you guys later. Like I text my family. Like that's how I told people, my moms and my husband. Like I was at work. Like I didn't know. It was just a shock. I couldn't even process. Wow. I went back to my classroom. I was like with my kids, and I'm like, and my friend came in. Like I told everyone at work because they had been praying, and they're like, we're all just in shock. And my coworker comes in. She's like, do you want like a minute, like to call someone? And I'm like, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I leave and I called. I forgot who I even called. I think my mom or I don't even remember who I called. But I was just like in shock. And that was basically how my journey began. Yeah. It was
wow.
Like, what? I'm 38. I'm young. I'm considered for breast cancer, that's typically considered young. And I'm like, this is a start to, I don't know what.
You don't even know. Like? Yeah. It's so unbelievable and so heavy and overwhelming at the same time. And you don't even know.
I always say too, I had about 2 weeks or so, maybe a little less from that moment to meeting with the doctor. And that to me was the most darkest, hardest time because you're given this diagnosis and that's it. Right. I don't know how far it's gone. I don't know if they see anything else.
Yeah.
I know nothing. All I know is I have cancer. Is it stage 4? Is it spread? Is it aggressive? Like I know nothing. And you're just sitting there and I was like, there has to be another way to do this because giving people you have cancer, so the doctor will be in touch is like, and you're sitting,
it's the waiting
sleep.
game.
I couldn't eat. I would wake up in the middle of the night like shaking in fear. Of,
oh, sure. What do I have in store for me? Like,
and so that was the very beginning of like, what is going on?
I know.
How do I do this?
Yeah.
How does life go on after that? You
right.
know? How do you move forward?
And for those healthcare workers to treat it that way, that's not fair to you.
Yeah.
But that's wrong. I mean, I retired as a paramedic, so I understand, how you keep people's emotion in check and you want to be very stoic.
Right.
Because that's not how you want to find out. It's just kind of like drop this bomb on you and then we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
That's wow.
I didn't even remember like the type. Like my husband was like, what did they say? I'm like, I don't know. I just remember you have cancer. He's like, call her back. So I called her back and was like, what type? She's like, it's invasive ductal carcinoma. I'm like, okay. And she's like, so, they'll tell you more at your appointment. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God.
And then they got me into the breast surgeon and I saw her, like I said, a little less than 2 weeks later.
But that is like you said,
that was the hardest part. I'm
struggle.
like, please, I hope that's not how everyone's finds out. I don't know. Maybe that is. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody finds out differently, but it's the waiting game, which is the hardest because you're like a sitting duck, Yeah,
I'd be at work just like in a daze, like, what am I going to be here? Like
what's
in a few months? Or am I leaving my class? Is this the last time I'm teaching them? Like so many thoughts and
many thoughts. And that's a powerful thing. Like your mind plays tricks on you and there's so many things that it goes down these very dark places. And that's what's so hard about being in the waiting game. But okay, so you go back to the appointment and what does he tell you and how do you start? Because everybody does this differently. So is it like, chemo and then surgery?
So I met with the breast surgeon and she was incredible. She had this whole book that explained everything because my biopsy had come in. They got in all the stuff about like what, all the details. So she opens this little book and she just explains everything. She's like, it's stage 1. We caught it early. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. She's like, it's hormone positive. So it's estrogen and progesterone positive, which means that there'll be additional treatments later after your surgeries and your treatments. She's like, at this point, we don't see a need for chemo. Your HER2s hasn't came back positive, but we're kind of thinking it's borderline, so we don't think it'll be a problem.
Sure.
So what we're thinking is a lumpectomy and then radiation. And I was like, okay, like it was very good news or relief after those, like I said, those rough couple weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Not knowing. So it was like, okay, good news. Like we caught it early. She was like, good job finding it. And that's why like early detection is so key because I had just gotten checked. If I would have never found it, who knows, like it could have spread. It could have gotten so much farther. So like I'm such like an advocate for like early detection. Get your scans, do your checks. Like that's what she says. Like when you catch it early, there's so much more that they can do. And so like I said, by the grace of God, we caught it early. So that was kind of the plan. Okay. So
the original plan.
So then I got
not what happened.
That's not what happened. So then I got an MRI, and she's like, we see a few other things, a few other little masses. We're going to do biopsies on those. Another good thing was they all came back fine. There's no cancer. It was just, whatever they call it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Cyst
whatever.
fibrosis, whatever. Yeah.
So they were like, nope, it's just that one. We don't see it in your lymph nodes. Again, we're still waiting on the HER2. It came back borderline, but as far as we can tell, it's just the ER positive and estrogen and progesterone positive. And I said, okay. So that was the plan. So I had my surgery.
She had surgery first.
I had surgery first.
Oh, this is new
I had
news.
my
I forgot
lumpectomy.
this.
They removed the mass. She also was like, we would love to also maybe include a reduction in there. I was a little more blessed. So in
And
that
you're like,
area,
okay.
and I had always wanted one, and she's like, let's do that.
Yay.
And I'm like, take as much as you want, do it. So they
Look at
did.
that.
So I got a
Extra
reduction
bonus.
and my lumpectomy, which was great.
Thank you, insurance.
I know, exactly. Thank you,
Yeah.
insurance. So then when I go back for my, appointment to make sure that my margins were all clear, everything looked good. They didn't see it in my lymph nodes and everything was clear. And so I was like, awesome. They're like, so next you'll meet with your oncologist because of the hormone positive.
Sure.
And so I was like, okay, awesome. And then we'll start radiation. You have to wait a little while after you're healing. Yep. So I was like, okay. So I meet with the oncologist and she's like, okay, so you're going to need chemo. And I'm like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, we got your paperwork back and you're HER2. And I'm like, no, I'm not HER2. And I brought my paperwork. I was like, no, and the biopsy. She's like, no, the biopsy was wrong. It was borderline. She's like, but when we tested the actual tumor, she's like, it was HER2 positive. So you're triple positive. So just to be safe and make sure we want you to do chemo. And
like,
that was like a bomb. I was like, what? I was not mentally prepared for chemo. I thought I wouldn't have to do, I was just shocked at that appointment.
I'm shocked because how things happen. You're like,
I know.
Everybody's like,
we caught it early. You got it all. I had
these
positive margins. It's nowhere. But they're like, we don't know if there's tiny little microscopic things that are there. And they're like, we just want to give you your best chance. We want to make sure there's nothing there.
Sure.
And that's why we want, we recommend doing it. They said, you don't have to do the extreme. You could do the more tolerable one out of the 3. So I did Taxol for 12 weeks. Is what they said that I should do.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. Yeah, I did 12 weeks, and they started it shortly after. Boom, I just went straight into that. And was
so you had surgery, then you got the bomb dropped on you, then you had to do 12 rounds.
12 rounds of chemo.
That's a
once
lot.
a week. I know. And then the really big thing that was so rough was I was supposed to go back to work, and my oncologist said, you can't. You work with preschoolers, germs and all the things. They're like, no, absolutely no. And I'm like, what if I wear a mask? I'm not wanting to let my work down. I'm not wanting to let my students. It's the end of the year. This is end of April. They graduate in June. I'm devastated. I'm like, I can make it work. And they're like, no. And my husband's like, are you crazy? No, we don't need you getting sick.
Yeah.
This is serious. Chemo's no joke. You can, try to push through, but we don't want any complications. We want you to have your best chance just to get through it. And so that was really hard to have to tell my work, I guess I'm going to be gone now for 3 months instead of 1. But they were so understanding, and my parents were so understanding and loving and just supported me through all of that. So I did that all summer, and then I started radiation a few.
So did you work during radiation then?
I did go back during radiation, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was like, if I can go back, I'm going back. I want to be back in the classroom.
Normal.
I wanted to feel normal, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I did, yeah. And so that was kind of my treatment plan.
Okay, so you teach preschoolers. Mm-hmm. Preschoolers have no filter, and they just tell it how it is. So tell me how this worked with you.
Well, when I came back, they were, I
they
visited.
saw you before.
They did see me before, and then I came back, I would come visit because my daughter was still going there in the summer. And so I would come, and I wore a lot of wigs, especially pink and different colors.
Yes, her pink wig was adorable.
But I'd wear also I wore a wrap one time, the wraps, the lace ones or whatever.
Sure.
And I walked in, and my kids were like, Ms. Sauceda, what happened to your hair? And I was like, I was like, remember, I'm sick, and remember, I'm on a medicine that is helping me get better, and my hair came out when I had that. And they're like, oh, okay. They didn't even care, but it was just they just looked at me like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
So then I started coming into work, and they knew I was wearing wigs at that point when I started going back to work. And so they're like, Miss Sauceda, show us your hair. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking my wig off. And then I'd wear a different one. They're like, okay, no, Miss Sauceda, wear your pink one tomorrow, or wear your long one. I had long one. I had shorts. So they would request
This
and then
is so cool.
the best thing is one of my students for, I think it was Valentine's Day or Christmas, I can't remember, brought me a gift, and her mom was like, she really wanted to get you this, and it was like a rainbow like wig. It was like it reminded me of like a unicorn because it was like the purpley rainbow. So it was like this short blonde rainbow wig, and she's like, I was hoping this wouldn't offend you. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm putting it on today. Like I went in the bathroom and changed. But they just thought it was so cool that I could change my hair every day. You know, like they were like, okay, do this. Here's another wig. They were great. They were
right. Oh yeah.
It's a rainbow wigs.
Yeah, it might not go over well.
So that was my little preschool.
So cute. They are adorable. Yeah. Okay, so then tell us about your children and how that feeling was with them and kind of going through this journey with you.
That was my weak spot for sure, was my kids. I was like, how am I going to tell them? I have two girls. 14 and 6. No, yeah. Like, what year are we in? Yeah, she's going to be 7 next month.
Okay.
My youngest. But yeah, so I was like, how do I tell my girls this? How do I walk them through this? My oldest, obviously, she's going to understand.
She knows,
she's going to know. And she had a hard time, but she loves the Lord, and she's very strong in her faith, and she just worked through it. She didn't have a hard time. She'd do worship. She showed me songs, and she was just so encouraging to me. Aww. And then my youngest didn't really understand, so like we didn't really go into a lot of detail. All she knew was mommy was sick, kind of like the same thing I told my preschoolers. Sure. Mommy's sick. She's taking this medicine to help her. Her hair's gonna fall out. And she laughed when she first saw me with my bald head.
Oh, she did.
She laughed. She's like, Mom, your hair's gone. I was like, I know. Oh. So she was just very sweet and didn't really, I think, comprehend what was going on. But one of my favorite memories with her is during chemo, I'd get chemo, I think, on a Wednesday. And every Thursday, I'd just be in bed, just sick and not feeling good. And every single day, she'd be with me. She would literally just lay in bed with me and just color or read or be on her iPad or just talk. Like, I was like, every memory I have being in bed that one day, usually it was just 1 or 2 days I'd be in bed, she was just with me. And
wow.
So and she didn't seem affected by it. Like, I don't think, she's only, I think she was 5 or 4 at the time, so she didn't really understand.
Wow, yeah. She's like, this is just...
So she's like, she's such a mommy's girl, so she's like, I'm just gonna be with mommy. I don't care what's going on. So that was really sweet. So I feel like the girls were, like, that was my big worry and struggle, and they were taken care of, and our family came and supported us and them, and my husband really stepped in, and so with that support, they were able to kind of get through it alongside us. So
let's talk about your husband. Yeah. What was his reaction? When you told him, and how did he respond?
He was obviously devastated. When I got on my lunch break that day, I found out. I went home and he was just crying, and I was like, "No, I'm crying." And my biggest thing was like, I had a hard time telling people. I didn't want to tell people. I had other people tell people because I didn't want people to be sad. Like, I didn't want to make people upset. And so seeing him upset was like, broke my heart. Right. But I was like, I'm going to fight this. Like, then inside, like a warrior kind of came out. Like, no, we're going to fight this. I'm going to fight this. Like, don't worry. Like, it's going to be okay. And I felt like that kind of side of me came out a little bit when I saw that. But then after that initial time, he was just right there with me and just was like, okay, what do you need? What are we going to do? He just took care of the girls and just everything that we needed as a family. He just ran and took care of it, and then was very sensitive to me with, what I was comfortable with or what I wasn't or what I needed emotionally. Good. And so he was very, very supportive. It was a big part of why I was able to get through those times.
Absolutely. But you don't know how brave and how strong you are until a struggle like this hits you. I mean, it hits you right between the eyes. You're just like, I don't even know, and you do have to have a moment to like, process it. And you're like, oh my gosh, and everybody does that processing a little bit differently. And so, I feel like, and we talked a little bit about like just mindset. And I feel like that's what you have to do is kind of put your mind saying, okay, I can do this, and that warrior person came out into you. And I think that is amazing because I think sometimes people just don't think I can get through this. And when you have that mindset, I can't get through it, you probably can't. So if you have the mindset in let's do this, let's fight it, I am going to come out on the other side. And it's just the power in that, you're speaking all that over you. And so that and also the support system that does the same, you know. So
Exactly.
there's something in that just brings you to the finish line.
Well, a lot of people would be like, I don't know how you're able. I'm like, you just, when you're in it, there's something inside you that can do this. There's something inside you.
Well,
You're stronger than you think.
It's
Absolutely.
inherent. It's called the fight or flight syndrome.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know, so you're either gonna lay down and die, or you're gonna wake up and fight.
That's
exactly.
right. That's
You know, and that's what you have to do.
That's it.
Tell us about your support system.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have an incredible family. My husband's family, we're very close. My family, I'm very close. Church family, we're very, like, me and my husband, towards the end of that time of going through chemo, we were like, wow, there are so many different people from all these different moments in our life. We lived in New Mexico for a little while because my husband was in the military. You know, we went to a different church, you know, for a while. And people from all of those moments in our life would come out, send us money, send us gifts, send us things. And we were like, the love and support, it brought us to tears because we were like, people care. And it's a very awkward thing. Like when I find out about things, it can be very awkward. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you help them? You want to help, you don't know how.
Sure.
But people just, little gestures were like key. Like just any little thing, you know, a gift, a card, even just a card was like so
Makes a big
touching to
difference.
us. We'd get that from different people in our lives. And so it was incredible to feel that support and that love of like, we're not going through this alone.
Sure.
We have people around us. Like, what do you need? You know, my sister-in-law set up a meal train for like every day I had chemo. So every time I had chemo, dinner was someone that we loved and cared for, someone that cared for us would bring us dinner. And so it was like seeing all these different people reach out and be like, we got your back. What do you need? Do you need help with the girls? Do you need this? It was just, it made it easier because you didn't feel like you had the weight of the world.
Sure.
You know, you're going through this, but you also got to, you know, you have a family, you have life, you have responsibilities. It was like the support helped ease some of that when emotionally we're just a mess, you know?
Sure.
Did you feel like you had to ask for it, or was it just, it was just
organic.
given?
Yeah.
That's
and even to the point where
amazing.
we're like, okay, like, thank
enough.
you guys. But
Yeah.
I think we had a few more dinners like after, and we're like, we're good. Like, you don't, you know, we're okay. Like, I can cook dinner now. But even just, it was above and beyond. We didn't even have to ask. Like,
That's
you know,
amazing.
people just stepped up and did it out of the kindness of their heart. And even in my preschool, like my parents were very sweet and did a lot of things and were like messaging me and checking on me. And so again, it was all these different areas in our life where we're like, wow, this
and
is
it makes
incredible.
you get past, you know, like I always say an encouraging word goes so far because you don't realize it can get them through the whole week, you know, and it's a simple thing to do. Our card can get you through that following week, you know. It does. It means more than anybody realizes.
Even
you know?
a text, like someone was like, I heard this worship song and I thought of you.
Oh,
or I read this and I thought of you. I want to share this, you know, someone's cancer journey. And it was like an encouraging word. And I was like, even that, I'm like, that's touching. You know, that was helpful. I needed that in that moment. Whatever I was doing, I was like, oh, I really needed to hear that. You know, like, thank you.
I love that. Yeah.
The way you found out wasn't the greatest.
Yeah.
So I want you to speak to those people that are finding out for the first time. And maybe they're going to experience something like you did. Kind of like they're reading the room and it's like, oh, this is
this isn't good. This
not
is
a great moment. What do you have to tell that person? What kind of encouragement can you give them?
I would tell them, like I said before, you're stronger than you think. Don't underestimate what's inside of you and what you're capable of. Fight, and don't be afraid to fight. Seek out resources, seek out help. There's so much out there that, you know, obviously if you're not going through it, you don't know that's out there. But now having gone through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's, you know, people you can call. I had people offer different numbers of people that had went through breast cancer and like seeking out those people because they know what you've been through. And that's the thing is like, you don't know what this is like. This is all new, but there are people out there who are willing to open up or share or help you through it. And so if someone's like referring someone or, you know, hey, didn't so-and-so go through even different type of cancer? Like it's still cancer and like, they still understand those feelings. So not being afraid to reach out or to seek out help or to talk to someone. I think we can get so confined with our thoughts, and sometimes that's not always a good thing. Or Google, which sometimes is not always.
We tell everybody, don't Google it.
Mistake.
Yeah.
Staying away from that, but finding the things that can keep you in the positive light and like, what can I, how can I get the help? How can I be built up, not brought down?
Sure.
And then not being afraid to even just have moments where you just need to have a moment. Like that's okay too. There were times I didn't want to talk about it, or, I didn't want to tell people. And so, having those moments to be like, that's okay. That's okay that I don't want to talk about it right now. We'll come back to that later or whatever.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You're allowed that. And I think people need to understand you have to give yourself grace.
Exactly.
You're allowed those moments. Mm-hmm. You're going to experience every emotion. I mean, we did as parents losing a child. Mm-hmm. You experience every emotion there is, and you have to give yourself that. Yeah. Too many people are too hard on themselves, like, oh, I have to be so strong and I have to carry this burden. You might have to carry it, but you're allowed to go through those emotional processes too.
And there's no right or wrong way.
There's no.
Everybody's different, and that's okay.
Yeah, I always say that. That's so important that people out there know that there isn't a wrong way to deal with this. But I do want to get into how you found out about 17 Strong, because everybody finds out a little bit differently. So tell me about that story.
Yeah, so I got a Facebook message from Audra McGehee. I think I'm saying that right. Yeah. Uh-huh. And she said, hey, I think you qualify for this. And she sent me like a screenshot. I think you guys had posted something of like qualifications, like, the age and like what things you guys look for when you're looking for recipients. And I was like, I think I do qualify. Actually, I'll meet all of those things. So I went on the website and I was like, okay, I don't really see a place to like apply. I'll just email you guys. So I sent an email and was like, hey, I think I qualify for this. Like, and you guys responded right away. I think you responded actually. And I was like, Audra told me about this and I think I qualify for a trip. And you're like,
and
absolutely.
How do you know Audra?
So just through our friends, the Slocums, some friends of ours that we're good friends with, and so we just met her. So it was, and we're not even like super close, but she was so sweet to like message us. They're a very sweet family.
Oh yeah.
And so it was just very thoughtful of her to do that and take the time to like let me know, because I would have not really known how to do it before. Yeah.
Did you hear about it in your town?
I feel like
I
had kind of vaguely heard the name 17 Strong, but
didn't understand what
didn't really. I'm not going to like go and apply. It was more of a push from her. I was like, oh, you're right. Like just a thoughtful little note. And so I did.
That's amazing.
Well, we love Randy and Audra.
Yes.
We go way back with them. In fact, Randy has known and Audra have known our boys since they were, 6 and 4 probably?
Wow.
Maybe. But we went to Audra and Randy's wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah. Way back. I'm telling you, like it's been way back.
Randy is one of the OG members of our board of directors.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool how, just really our small community comes
There's
around.
There's all connections. I know.
I love that too. Yeah. And we also have another connection with you that I think you're aware of, but our kids went to Little Oaks and Royal Oaks Christian School. And so that was at Hope Church,
our church,
which is, you guys still have that pastor. And so I'll never forget when I saw her out and about and she's like, I can't tell you, like that is Ashley's best friend. And I'm like, this is so crazy, like mind blown,
Well, they're Foursquare too. There's a lot of connections.
There's a lot of connections.
We have a lot of connections.
It is so cool.
Would have never known.
Never known, right? Because they were all just acquaintances. Yep. But tell us where you picked to go on your victory trip and why and who you went with, all that fun stuff.
I always laugh at this.
I know.
People are like, where did you go? Like, you got a trip anywhere?
I know.
And I'm like, Disneyland. And they're like, oh, so you mean like the Florida? And I'm like, no, the one that's like really close. And they're like, what? What are you?
Why?
Okay, hold on here. Okay, so I wanted my girls to be a part of this. And I wanted it to be something that they would remember and something that would be really, really fun for them. Mm-hmm. And when I was a little girl, I always wanted to stay at the Disneyland Hotel, but I could never, my parents like almost did one time, but my mom was like, absolutely not. Like, this is ridiculous how much this costs. We're not staying there. And I remember being so bummed, like, I want to stay at the Disneyland Hotel.
Oh gosh.
And so over the years, I know that they have like the California Adventure Run and all these, these other ones. And so I was like, oh, I would never be able to stay. So that little girl in me was still like, that would be so fun to like actually stay at one of the Disneyland hotels, be with my girls and just have fun. Like they're still that young age where that would be so much fun. And I know we could go anywhere, in the world, but I'm like, that would be so memorable because we would never be able to stay there otherwise, like at that hotel. And so that was like, that's something we would never be able to do. So I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to go with them. I want to stay at that hotel. I forgot what it's not. Oh, it's called the Grand Californian, I think. Yeah. And so we got, I think it was 4 or 5 nights there, and we got our passes. And by the way, the passes were amazing because we could hop through the parks, and the hotel had an entrance to the park, which was like game changer. I was like, oh, we're doing this again someday. My husband's like, no, we're not. We are not staying here again. I'm like, but this is like a game changer being like right on the park. Like that's incredible. Don't you get,
like access to it an hour before everybody else?
Yep, you get early access. And it was just so easy to like go to the park and then come back to the hotel and chill. Oh, yeah. We did the character breakfast, which I got the cutest pictures of my youngest, like with the, the different characters. And it was just the most amazing time. Like I said, my girls are like my heart and soul. So getting this time, because, they went through it just as much as we did.
Totally. Absolutely. They do.
And they did amazing through it and were so strong through it. I wanted it to have start fresh family memories of, we didn't even know if we were going to have those in the beginning, like when we didn't know. So that was my trip, and it was absolutely incredible. It was the best. I still look back at my reels and my pictures and videos, and I'm like, that was the best time. And to come out of everything and then that be the first memory of
I love that.
Of after my journey, the after, was just, we were over the moon.
So what did your trip really mean to you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It was a fresh start, looking forward, or the after part of cancer is very hard because you don't know, is it going to come back? Is something. And that in that moment of being on that park, there was a moment where I watched this Disney thing and it spoke to me so deeply because it was their end of the day show, and it said something like, the next part is just turning another page, and it's going to be wondrous. And I just started crying because I feel like cancer robs you of your future. It robs you of knowing if you have a future. And so being there in that moment and seeing that and thinking this is just the beginning of another step of my life. That wasn't the end. The best wasn't behind us. Sometimes I feel like you can think pre-cancer life was so much better. This cancer and post-cancer is so hard. Even now, sometimes it's still hard with the emotion and the trauma of what you go through. But that moment was a fresh start of me looking forward and not being afraid and not feeling we had the good moments before cancer. So now this is just my life. Cancer, even though I beat it, it's still stuck to me in some way through the trauma. Yeah. And so it was just so amazing to be in that moment and think positive and be this is the start of a great future that I have.
A new chapter.
That is exactly. It was this is a new chapter.
Yeah.
And it's
the
not
best
going to be
is yet to be.
Exactly.
You have the whole future, and that is, to see every milestone that your kids have, every mile, that's just, life is precious. And, so I feel like that is just the way, that's what the Victor Trip is supposed to be, to reflect and start that new chapter of life. And it's so beautiful. So I think that's amazing.
Well, part of her new chapter is what?
Being our 17 Strong ambassador. She's another one of our.
I love it.
Yeah, I always say it's better to do things with friends. So you and Ashley have, we launched it, and you guys are our first. So you're kind of learning along with us, and I think that is amazing. And so thank you so much for doing this with us, and just to being vulnerable and telling your story and helping others out. And that's a key is helping those people that maybe are just getting diagnosed and just telling your story. So I think that is a beautiful thing. And 17 Strong comes alongside you and restores that hope and dreams back into your life. That's what we want to do, because, your tomorrow was never guaranteed. And now we're at that point. So we love to celebrate victory with you guys.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited.
I am too.
And I'm excited to partner with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
Yeah.
So
I think it's, yeah.
we
I
had a
can't
lot.
wait. We still have lots to do.
Yeah.
but,
Lots to do.
yeah, it's
Well,
exciting. Thank you
here
so
today
much.
and-
Thank you guys.
and for sharing your story. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
So with that, we'll wrap
Yep.
up another 17 Strong podcast. I'm your host, Steve Teixeira. Remember, attitude is everything.
You've been listening to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. To be part of the show, make a donation, or request more information, go to 17strong.org. That's SEVENTEEN strong.org.